Welcome to Kayak Fishing Works. This video is about a modified trolling motor system that I've attached to my Seaghost 130. We're going to talk about a motor mount that's easy to make and quick to install and remove, a handheld speed control that has a forward and reverse switch on it, as well as the addition of a PWM, which will give you the advantage of increased battery runtime as well as variable speed control. The steering allows not only the use of the foot pedals, but also a hand control option that can be used while sitting or standing. So if you want to stand and fish and still control the trolling motor, that's an option as well. And lastly, replacing the standard trolling motor prop with an RC airplane prop. The motor mount is really easy to fabricate. It's just two pieces of wood joined together with some 2.5-inch stainless steel deck screws, as well as you'll see a little stainless steel carriage bolt coming down, and that's held in place by the Minn Kota trolling motor mount that's just screwed to that top piece of wood. Now these two holes here, take note of those. You'll see where they come into play in a second, and they're the screws just securing the two pieces together. So installing the motor mount, it's as simple as lining up that carriage bolt with the rudder pin hole and then sliding down the front of the motor mount behind the rear handle. So there are some 90-degree galvanized metal brackets that I've secured underneath the base of the handle, and then they come up flush with the front of the motor mount, and then I'm sliding pins through those brackets and then into the wood. So you saw previously the two holes that I had drilled in the front of the motor mount. Here's a close-up of the pins and the brackets that I bought at a lumber store. I had to drill through the bracket at both the top and the bottom just so the pin would fit through, as well as the screw for the handle. Now, I put two of these pins in there. Honestly, I've actually left them off by accident and gone a whole day fishing and have not had any issues with the bracket coming off, but it does help hold it in place a little bit more securely. So this is a Minn Kota 40-pound thrust motor, and I did cut the clamp section off the motor mount, so that's how I could screw it directly down to the wooden mount itself. I also disabled the locking mechanism for retracting it and keeping it in the up position. So I just use instead that orange cord that you see, as well as the rudder cable. I wrap the rudder cable around the bottom of the trolling motor shaft and just secure it with a clip. So using that rudder deployment cord, I've got that in the cleat and clamped down, so it just keeps the motor from wanting to swing back up when you put it in reverse. The orange cord, that goes up to a cleat, so when I want to lift the motor out of the water, I just release that rudder deployment off of its cleat, and I pull the orange cord and cleat it off. The battery box, that has a 50 amp hour AGM sealed lead acid battery in it, and if I'm going 3 miles or so, it'll last fine for that. Usually it lasts me a full 8 hours of fishing. Obviously your mileage may vary depending on what you're doing. So there's that orange cord that's cleated off. I've got the motor pulled up just slightly. Now for the steering, I use the rudder control cables that are attached to the foot pedals, and I just tie those onto some toggle bolts that are attached to the steering linkage. For the hand steering, that's that white pipe you see there. It's a piece of 1/2-inch CPVC. I use the CPVC instead of the PVC. It's a little bit sturdier but yet flexible, and it's just tied onto that toggle bolt as well. The CPVC is run through a loop of paracord that's attached to the rear rail, and that just helps it operate a little bit more smoothly. Then I lay the rest of the pipe right inside the paddle holder channel, and I pull that bungee over it to secure it in place. When I want to stand up and troll, I just go ahead and pull that bungee off. I take that piece of CPVC and I can slide it through my belt loop. It'll hold it there, so I can go ahead and I can fish pretty much hands-free. Every once in a while I may have to reach down and grab the piece of CPVC and either pull it forward or push it backwards if I want to turn the trolling motor. But for the most part, I can just kind of leave it alone and it stays where it's at. So one thing of note, if I'm going to be standing and trolling, I'm only going to be doing it in pretty light wind conditions or light current. So now if I were at anchor, not using the trolling motor, sure, I'll stand up in the Sea Ghost, even in pretty heavy winds and some waves. But it's just not stable enough, or my balance just isn't good enough, where I don't want to get tossed off the kayak. So that's another thought, is adding a kill switch to it. It's not a bad idea. The steering linkage is just a piece of wood that I drilled a hole in the diameter of the trolling motor shaft. Then I cut that piece of wood right through the center of that hole, and I screwed the two halves together, so it's just a pressure fit around the shaft of the trolling motor. So that allows the trolling motor to rotate farther when you're trying to turn it. Okay, so moving on to the PWM. I'm not going to go into how to remove the control head and how to wire up the PWM, but if you want to let me know down in comments, if you want more information on that, you'd like me to do a video on it, please let me know. I'll be happy to do that. So the PWM though, it definitely gets you a lot longer runtime from your battery. With your traditional trolling motor, when you have, say the 5 speeds forward and the 3 speeds reverse. So in order to get those lower speeds, basically all the electricity has to go through resistors, and those resistors just create heat. So you're basically burning up your battery power, just creating heat, and to get your trolling motor run a little bit slower. In addition to a significant increase in battery runtime, you're also going to have variable speed control in both forward and reverse. So rather than having your 5 forward speeds, and you always want to be somewhere between, say, a 2 and 3 at times, or maybe a 4 and 5. This way you can just dial in that trolling motor speed exactly how you want it. I placed the PWM inside the battery box. It just sits in a plastic tray. The box is waterproof, so I didn't feel it needs any more protection. That little plastic cup with the tape on it, that's a resettable fuse, and I purchased that from a auto parts store for $4 or $5. The PWM, I bought that on Amazon, paid around $15 for that. The handheld controller, I put that together. It's just a PVC junction box with a PVC cap on the top and the bottom. And on the top I attached an S-biner to it, so I can either clip it to my seat or to my belt loop when I'm standing. I used a piece of Cat 6 Ethernet cable to run from the hand controller to the PWM. It's been working fine so far. I would like to upgrade it though to something else that maybe has a little bit higher gauged wire in it. Home thermostat wiring would work, but it was a little bit stiffer than what I was looking for. So as I hunt for, maybe another option, if the Cat 6 holds up, I may just stick with that. Last, we'll talk about the prop. So switching over to the RC airplane prop, I've seen probably about a 30% increase in speed. We're still not, water skiing behind this thing, but it's significantly quicker. I mean, we're going from 3.5 miles an hour to now, an average 5 miles per hour. So for the $4 or $5 that it costs to buy one of these props, and the little bit of time it takes to drill it out and to put the keyway in it, I think it's well worth it. The propellers that I used are an APC C-2 10x6 pusher propeller, and they're a pretty sturdy little propeller. In conclusion, this system works really good for me. No, it's not a Torpedo, it's not a Bixby water jet. Those have a great weight savings advantage, but I think speed-wise, I'm pretty close with this, and price-wise, you can't beat it. For around $200, you could put this system together, and that includes the trolling motor, the battery, PWM, everything you need. Hey, thanks for watching this video. I really do hope you got something out of it that you can use for your kayak setup. And please, if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below in the comment section. I'm happy to help you out if I can. Now go on out and spend some time on the water.